Kobe, I'm not a big fan, but I naturally know that I gotta respect him because he is, he's great. He did so much for the game. Why'd you roll your eyes?
I can roll my eyes all I want.
What do you mean?
You want to hate on Kobe? I can hate on Kobe for a long time.
Absolutely. What do you think?
Tell me what makes him great.
That's why I love doing this. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Instant Replay, your favorite sports podcast. I'm your host, Zoeb Naqvi. This week we had Haaris Kirmani, who's a longtime Raptors fan, come onto the podcast and talk to us about the NBA playoffs and what his views are on the second round matchups. What we didn't expect was Haaris's controversial views, to say the least, on whether Kobe Bryant is a great player or not, whether Vince Carter is a good player or not, whether Chris Paul is a good player or not. There were so many gems in this podcast. It was a lot of fun. Haaris has a ton of energy, knows a ton about the sport, and so you guys are definitely going to enjoy this episode. And so take a listen, and as always, at Instant Replay, we're bringing it back. You're a big Vince Carter fan?
Well, if you're going to ask who my favorite athlete is, that's who it's going to be.
That's who your favorite athlete is?
Well, if we're going to be talking basketball sense, yeah.
What? Oh my god. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did.
That's so disappointing, Haaris.
Oh, please.
That's disappointing, buddy.
Get out of here.
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
I'm deeply saddened for your lack of taste in athletes.
Says the one who's got a LeBron and Kobe right next to each other.
Hey,
like what?
So, I'm not... Listen. Time out. One, I gotta give a shout out to my brother. My brother made both of these. This one's for my birthday because I'm a huge LeBron fan.
Yes, I know.
Right? I'm a huge LeBron fan. Kobe, I'm not a big fan, but I naturally know that I gotta respect him because he is, he's great. He did so much for the game. Why'd you roll your eyes?
I can roll my eyes all I want.
What do you mean?
You want to hate on Kobe? I can hate on Kobe for a long time.
Absolutely. What do you think?
Tell me what makes him great. Tell me what makes him great beyond
his work ethic? Do you question his work ethic?
No, but see, people put work ethic as if it's some sort of... You're a professional. You're expected to have that work ethic. It's not...
If you're going to throw stats in my face, which is probably what you're going to do, he's like career 43%
No,
shooter or anything like that. Like,
Look. What I'll basically get on to his win shares, if you really want to get on from a stats perspective, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So, plain and simple, he could have been... As Shaq is also as much stupid as Shaq is, and at this point, you could have taken any of those elite shooting guards at that point, and they would have won just as much, if not more.
With Shaq.
Yes, with Shaq. And then, look, afterwards, what happened the year Shaq left? Well, what was their record that year?
Nothing. They didn't even make the playoffs.
Not even close. It was a 37 and...
Yeah, they were horrendous. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, but then he goes and essentially people talk about his loyalty, but really he held the Lakers franchise by gunpoint.
Totally.
Said that he was going to leave if this didn't happen, and then what's probably the most rigged trade in the history of NBA went down.
Yeah, it all worked out for him.
Great. So I'm not denying that he's a great player.
Yeah.
Am I going to put him in like a top 20? I don't know.
Really? You don't think he's top 20?
I don't think he's top 20.
You don't think Kobe Bryant?
Top 20.
Is Vince Carter top 20?
No.
Okay, thank God. I just want to see if there's a bias going on. That's all.
But here's if you want to talk about from a talent perspective, I think Vince Carter is more talented than Kobe was. But
yeah, okay, but then
back in the day, they were talking about Vince Carter for Kobe trades, and every Toronto fan would have said hell no at that point.
Yeah,
for good reason.
Yeah,
because he's been...
Well, when Vince Carter came into the league, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, and look who's still going out. You're talking about work ethic. Who's still going, and who's still a contributor on a playoff teams.
I can't believe you don't consider Kobe Bryant in your top 20.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna get into like writing down a list of it, but I had done it a while back, and yeah, I'd put Kobe in like...
This isn't even part of the topics that I want to talk about, but I feel like talking about this. Anyways, so this is what we're gonna do, okay, Haaris? We're gonna put this on the shelf for now, because down the road I'm gonna do a LeBron versus Kobe episode, and we can get into that. But right now I want to talk to you essentially about the playoffs. We're in the midst of the playoffs.
Absolutely.
It's a huge deal right now in terms of, whether or not I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it's a huge deal. In my opinion, these playoffs have been relatively boring. Is that a true statement for you or not?
I don't think so at all. What makes it boring in your opinion? I think we've had...
I feel like it's settled who's going to make it. Is that true or not?
Who's gonna make it? Let's get
Cleveland and Golden State.
Cleveland, Golden State. See, when these playoffs started, I had this tendency to kind of write down what I think is a relatively crazy bracket on what was going on there, and I had the Rockets and Raptors in the finals, assuming that the Raptors can get past the series.
So okay, how much of that Raptors was bias?
I don't think it's much bias at all. And
you're wearing a Raptors shirt for our listeners. Just making that clear. It's a jacket, Raptors, very nice jacket, but it's the Raptors jacket.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Season ticket holder for a couple of years now. The love for Raptors is there.
Okay.
But in my mind, first of all, there's absolutely no doubt that they have all the talent in the world to be able to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers at this point. There's a reason.
There's small doubt in your mind. If LeBron James is on the opposite team, there's small doubt in your mind.
You know what? When you're up against one of the all-time greats, it's always difficult.
Absolutely.
On that. But what the Raptors have that I feel the Cavs don't have is depth.
Right.
The level of depth that the Raptors have, which, by the way, Dwayne Casey needs to be able to use to be able to get that, which, by the way, I was very glad on my way over here reading that we're probably going to be starting Pirtle and Powell in the next game.
Oh, wow.
Which, excellent.
Yeah, but Jonas is a mismatch.
Oh, absolutely. But at the same time, what gives Cavs their strength is their pace of play on that. And
sure. I agree with that.
Yeah, that is one side of it that Jonas unfortunately doesn't work out well with. I put a little bit on the way the Raptors management is done on that. They kind of built up Jonas, who, by the way, when he came to the league was a wiry center. He was quick. He was a quick guy coming in.
Yep.
But they clearly set him up so that he'd be a dominant post player, and they probably made him double his muscle mass. And
totally, he's so much slower now.
Yeah, he's much slower.
Like if you look at his rookie year versus what he's doing now in terms of his quickness, it's actually gotten down significantly.
Absolutely.
But to the point now. In this example, like this matchup that they're going to have, there's no one big on the other side that can match up with him. So why isn't he getting enough minutes?
But I think that's a double-edged sword on that end. Okay. The advantage here being that when the NBA in general has gone obviously to a guard-heavy, completely guard-heavy style of play.
Known fact.
And with that, unfortunately, comes the downfall of big men. And the way Jonas has been set up, anytime you put him up against a traditional center, one who'd be able to keep up, he dominates.
Yeah.
The sides that Jonas, he has his warts to his game, but his strength comes in his post defense, which by the way is much better than people. His post defense is good. His rebounding is always in the top there.
Right.
And so he's also a top 7 offensive rebounder. He's actually like only 0.1 offensive rebound worse than Tristan Thompson on there. So I mean, these are things you don't necessarily notice, and his 16 million contract is excellent.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so all those things are there, but unfortunately with all the top teams kind of going away from that leads you to a point where yes, you have his offense that could be there to prop it up, which by the way, him going to the bench in these kind of matchups I think works well for that, because when you get that situation on the second unit, where I think by the way the Raptors would win the series if they were to, it would be the second unit side.
Sure.
That is where you could potentially use him in almost a Cantor-like role and really be feeding them on that perspective and make them match you. But the real advantage of switching up, in my opinion, and having Pirtle and Powell starting is they bring more energy and more mobility to it to be able to stop those early transition buckets.
Fair enough. So it's basically to address the fast break issue that Cleveland runs. Okay, so let's go through this. So the starting lineup, obviously in Toronto, game 1, we know what happened in game 1. We got blown out, right? Fair to say. We watched most of the game. We gave ourselves a chance. I was actually optimistic after watching that game. Yeah. Most people were like, this is over. Yeah. Exactly, right? Like, we had a bad game, according to our standards, in my opinion, because Lowry and DeRozan combined for 39 points in aggregate. I mean, DeMar Carroll played 20 minutes, scored 4 points, but he's been playing horrendous altogether, right? He had 4 points. And then you look at Cleveland, okay? Now look at Cleveland. You look at Kyrie Irving, who's not an assist-driven point guard, had 10 assists, okay, that game. LeBron had 35, 10, and 4. Normal LeBron stats, to be quite honest, on 50% shooting. Kevin Love had his standard as well in terms of double-double.
Yeah.
In terms of Tristan Thompson, also a double-double.
14-11.
Right, so at the end of the day, they had the optimal game, and we had a suboptimal game.
Yep.
We didn't match up exactly to the level of energy that they had, and that's what resulted. So I'm not, and it's game 1. We blow game 1s all the time. We rarely win games 1. I think what's our record? 1-11 franchise history or something like that.
Yeah. That's pretty bad.
So that's horrendous. I mean, at the end of the day, every Raptors fan. But going forward, how many games do you think this series goes?
Well, to me, from a Raptors fan's perspective, if it's an ideal...
Well, I want both.
Yeah, of course. In an ideal scenario, and what the ESPN odds and all these places have said, the best chance for the Raptors to win would be in 6 games. That would be a perspective. They can split one of these two. Well, in this case, one game here that's coming up. Game 2 is incredibly important.
Okay.
And then we have great odds to be able to pull the games at home.
Okay.
At the very least, I don't see this series going any lower than 6 games, to be honest. It was 6 last year, and it was 6, yes.
So do we win the 2 at home?
I think we do win the 2 at home.
Okay.
It's the difference is going to be between game 2 and game 5. That's where the series is going to be really decided. We have horrible game 5 records, so I'm not too confident on that. But
we beat Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it was just one of those where. Well, Game 5 was at home with Milwaukee, right?
I know.
Game 5's away. Yeah, absolutely, it's there. But you'd have to buck a serious trend.
Very funny there. No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Okay, so we know this is the first time when Milwaukee, we know that series, how that went. Shout out to Milwaukee, who played amazing, to be quite honest. They're going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference in maybe a year or two, in my opinion. Yeah. LeBron's on the downside. When he's on his downside, not yet, but when he's going down, Giannis is going to be coming up, so it just makes sense. So you're picking Cleveland to win or no?
I think
because the Raptors in you is obviously saying 7 games or 6 games we're gonna win, but realistically, what's that realistic analyst mind saying?
Yeah, and from a realistic analyst mind speaking here, I think the Toronto Raptors at home are incredibly scary in the playoffs.
Okay.
And
that's 3 games though.
That's 3 games. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. That's the difference is going to be whether we can take one at home.
Honestly, Cleveland's road record is garbage.
It's exactly
below 500.
Exactly. So if the analyst in me is saying that Cleveland wins this in 7, because if I see it goes to 7, we're not winning in Cleveland on a game 7.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I'll be driving down. I'm excited for
that. Okay, fair enough. I'm actually going to Cleveland this weekend, which doesn't work out for me because all the games are going to be here. But I'll be watching the game as a Raptors fan in the queue.
Hey.
Essentially at the queue party.
Fair enough. But that's the idea. So
okay.
It's either Cavs in 7 or Raps in 6.
Okay, fair enough.
My opinion on that.
Okay.
It very well could end sooner than that. I just don't see us.
Would you consider it a disappointment if it ended in 5?
Yes.
Disappointing season. Do you fire Casey?
See, I'm not the one of those who just wants to jump on the coach to be able to.
What do? Do you re-sign Kyle Lowry?
Oh, absolutely. Do
you re-sign Ibaka?
So here's what it's going to come down to.
Okay.
I would love to be able to re-sign those. It's going to work on how the cap space and all is going to work on. We have Lowry's bird rights, which is excellent, meaning we can sign him last.
Totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no. The fact of the matter is, Lowry's
we just go into the luxury tax.
Exactly. Lowry's on a $12 million contract now, so even if you don't sign him,
but he's 30. He's turning 32.
Yeah, that's fine. For
5-year contract.
We'll see.
4
4-year contract is probably it, but honestly, here's my thing. If you don't sign him, I mean, you're pretty much blowing this team up as far as I'm concerned, because he is the engine of this team. I don't care what people say, he is by far the best player on this team, and he is the engine that makes Toronto run. Even now in these playoffs, people talk about his struggles, all that. We're still plus 20 better with him on the court than it is without. So there's no doubt that in my mind that we re-sign Lowry, especially because if we don't re-sign him, the options that are out there for his cap hold is not really worth not doing so.
Gotcha.
So even if, let's say, it looks like an albatross contract, 3-4 years down the road, I think it's still worth it for a team that you've built up to pretty much be a contender at this point.
Okay.
And it wouldn't make much sense for you not to sign him unless you're truly tanking, which, by the way, is, in my opinion, the worst thing any winning franchise can do. You're never going to.
We'll see how Philly is down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And
right?
Philly is, in my opinion, still hasn't. First of all, we haven't seen them all healthy together.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. But still, if you're instilling a culture of losing, it takes a lot to be able to get that out of that. And especially when you're coming. Philly has been bad for a long time.
Very long.
Yeah, a very long time. The last time they made the playoffs, it was winning the first round when Rose got injured. And
oh my God. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, when Iguodala took them through the second round.
Totally.
And they got whooped. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. So
Iguodala back in the day on Sixers, that's the first time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday. Yeah.
It's tough to get past that, especially because now, in my opinion, you've built up you're looking to emulate a team of consistent growth there, and you have youth on your team, which is great. That's what matters here. And I look at the future on our team, and everyone's talking about Milwaukee's future, but I'm just as excited about the future that we have. Between Pirtle, between DeLon Wright, between Norman Powell. These are.
I think people are though excited about Milwaukee because of the fact that Milwaukee is basically composed of like their top future players are basically, let's say, 24 and younger.
Okay.
Right? Jabari? 2 injuries, unfortunately. Imagine if Jabari was playing. We'd be in trouble, man.
But he was also a massive defensive liability. You probably wouldn't have Thon Maker doing the
same minutes that he was doing.
Exactly.
Agreed with you. Okay, fair enough. They have Thon Maker. They have Giannis, obviously. They have Malcolm Brogdon, who I'm a big fan of.
Awesome.
That's their young core. That's an amazing young core.
Yeah. They've got talent. There's no two ways about it. But to be able to put that in perspective, what they have on their end, they're pretty much dealing with just their youth side, and it's untested. On Toronto, on the other hand, has not only now built up a culture of playoffs, you've built up a team that's a perennial top seed in the East. Gotcha. And then you're creating that culture where you see the work ethic that it takes to be good, and you see the players that are working hard, and then you aren't just thrown into the fire.
Sure.
You're seeing what it takes to win, and you're getting that experience out there.
Sure.
Versus a team that's young, lots of talent and all that, but there's a reason why teams look for veterans to be able to help.
Agreed with you. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we know where you stand on the Toronto Raptors. Okay, you think it's gonna go at least 6 or 7.
Yep.
With the Raptors winning, fingers crossed. If not, the analyst in you is saying the Cleveland. So basically, what you're telling me is your heart is saying Raptors, your mind is saying Cleveland. Okay, fair. Okay, let's move that to the side. Now, obviously, you mentioned if we don't sign Larry, we're going to be blowing up. Another team that potentially is looking to be blown up now is the Clippers.
Yep.
Yeah, so what are your views in terms of, does Blake Griffin get signed? Obviously, JJ Redick, everyone knows, is probably not going to get signed because he was on like a $7 million contract, and now he's going to go to 20.
18.
Yeah, easily in the high 18s or whatever. In terms of Chris Paul, does he stay? Does Doc Rivers get fired? What happens to the Clippers? What, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, when you're talking about blowing a team up, you have to have achieved some real success to be able to consider not getting past the second round of it. But anyways,
5 years in a row, they've blown a lead, right?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where
only team in NBA history that's ever done that.
Yeah, I mean,
I was shocked by that.
Yeah, that 3-1 series against Houston, that was just incredible. It was just bad. You're letting Josh.
Oh, that 3-1 series in Houston was something else. That was horrendous.
Yeah, I think for the Clippers, what they've, at least in my mind, what they've missed is that they've relied so heavily on their stars that even though they have all this depth, the reality is their depth has always been players on the real tail end of their careers. It's really hurt them defensively.
Right.
And it's just left you in a situation where
Paul Pierce, Maurice Spates.
Exactly. Well, Maurice Spates at least younger, but I mean, you're talking exactly Paul Pierce, Jamal Crawford's 35 who can't defend anything. He's a pylon. What? But he's
I love Jamal Crawford.
I love Jamal Crawford.
For his earlier days.
Oh yeah, his and one is that
and one exactly.
Exactly. He's straight baller.
Jay Crossover. Yeah. Shout out to Jay Crossover. Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, from a blowing up perspective, I'm just thinking of, okay, yes, you could potentially do that. I mean, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they're both going to opt out of their player options. It just makes sense. At the very least, they'll be making more money, which they deserve.
Right.
At this point. See, here's my thing with the, especially with the point guard situation, which is by far the deepest position in the league. If Chris Paul's going anywhere, he's going to be looking at where could I go to potentially win a ring.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if you look at all the top teams that are
San Antonio.
Exactly. It's easy to say San Antonio. One, from a cap space situation, it's going to be quite difficult. On how they're actually going to work.
I haven't looked into it, but would you like to see him if there was no cap space issue in San Antonio?
Well, the non-Chris Paul liker in me wouldn't like to see him anywhere where he wins, but yeah, he would.
I didn't know you weren't a Chris Paul.
Yeah,
dude, you just don't like anyone from LA.
No, there's lots of guys I like from LA.
Okay.
I'm a big Blake Griffin fan. We can
Oh my God. Okay, then perfect. This is perfect transition to talk about this. Okay, where does Blake Griffin go if he has to go somewhere? If they're gonna part ways with him, where does he go? Because who's willing to take this on? Okay, 2014 back spasm start. 2015 torn left quad. 2016 broken hand. 2017 broken toe.
Broken toe. I love
whatever. Adds more emphasis to his injuries. You know.
And how many?
That's his track record over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Injuries are a unfortunate side effect of what Blake is, but the fact of the matter is, when he's playing, he's up there with the top 2-3 power forwards in the game.
Is he a superstar?
Yeah.
What? No, he's not.
Yeah, he's a superstar player. Why is
Haaris,
okay? Define
he's not.
superstar. Define superstar to me. So, for me, a superstar is someone who, one, as soon as he comes on the floor, the defenses are completely keying in on you.
Right.
You have the ability to change a game, which he absolutely does.
Okay.
And he does that from a power forward position where this side of Nikola Jokic, there's not better passers in the game from that position. So it's just one of those where he can talk about the point forward position, all of that. From a power forward perspective, he is absolutely incredible on that. He has all the abilities. Injuries aside, anytime he's hit the floor healthy, he is a impact player.
So if you watch, so this is what I would define a superstar, okay? If you look at his matchups against people who matter in his conference, you look at him against Kevin Durant, okay?
Why would Kevin Durant be that position though? But Kevin Durant's more of a 3. You can put him in the 4, but he's
No. Kevin Durant matches up with him during the games.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But if you're talking about traditional matchups for Blake Griffin, would be all the 4s that are in the conference, and he's done well. Or if you go back to the year that the Spurs lost to the Clippers in the first round, same series.
Same.
He had an excellent series.
Same one that the timeout conspiracy. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. So that was the same one where he had an excellent series against Tim Duncan on there, and he has all the abilities on there. It's
Tim Duncan that was 40.
Tim Duncan was still playing at the top of Tim Duncan's old man Riverwalk.
Do you think he has a shot against Tim Duncan in his prime? Do you think he does what he does with Tim Duncan at 28?
At 28.
Whatever, 30. Pick whatever age. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Like, he's in his prime and he's going... You can't use that as a comparison to say...
What I'm saying here is... So what you're saying is that against his contemporaries, he doesn't
match up well.
He's had good games against Anthony Davis. I mean, like, there's all these
That's fair. That's a good point.
He's had great games overall against Golden State, and maybe not since the Durant, but back in the days from the year prior, I would always be taking him in FanDuel those nights he's facing Golden State because he would have big games against them.
But listen. Okay, so a team that would really like to have a Blake on their team, you know, someone that would be willing to spend the money is maybe a New York would go ahead and spend the money. I know you'd love to see him there. Probably not. That was sarcasm. Brooklyn has no one. Maybe they roll the die on him. Orlando has no prospects. Maybe they roll. But basically, do you see the trend? What I'm doing here?
Yeah.
Apart from Boston, there, New York, nobody cares. Brooklyn, nobody cares. Orlando, nobody cares.
Hey, I like Orlando. Aaron Gordon is. But anyways, yes, I understand what you mean. I don't think there's a better position for him to be than to stay in LA, and I don't see him going.
Okay.
If there's anyone I do see going, it's potentially Chris Paul. But I again look back to if Chris Paul's looking to win a ring, where is he going? I was joking with my brother that maybe he wants to go back to New Orleans, set up shop over there with those boys up the front, right? But
that'd be amazing for him.
That would be awesome. Yeah, but does that make him a contender all of a sudden? I don't know. But would have to.
Drew Holiday's pretty good.
Drew Holiday's pretty good. See, and that's where I'm getting at. Every top team, as far as I'm concerned, other than, as you say, San Antonio, which who knows how that's going to work out. And honestly, it'd be great to be able to see him there, but I think San Antonio has a system that they kind of have going on theirs that they like. I would be probably more inclined to see George Hill go back there instead of Chris Paul. I think George Hill would go after this year. It just is a system he's worked in. This is contract year. It makes sense to me.
Sure.
But who knows? But yeah, it goes back to the idea that if you're looking to compete for a ring or at least be in a position where you're relevant, I don't necessarily see him going to any of those top teams unless something magical happens.
But at the same time, you don't necessarily see the same team together.
Yes, I don't see
because clearly we know for the last 5 years they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I think for them it's more. I think their core is fine. I think there are 3 guys. Even though I'm not a huge DeAndre Jordan fan, he has his impact. It's there
for sure.
Yeah, so. You have your core, which is fine. And as far as I'm concerned, a point guard ages well better than other ones. So I'm not too concerned about Chris Paul's age either, even though he's had injury concerns, but not as concerned about his age. I think for them, it's more about getting good young pieces and also people that you don't necessarily have the ability to just sag off on defense. Luke Richard and Mbamute, these guys on the start.
Yeah.
He's a great defender, but the fact of the matter is you can pretty much leave him alone on offense. If he hits a shot, great.
Okay.
And it's a bonus for them, but it's one of those things where I think they'd be out, perhaps looking to trade away some of these players to get up in the draft and maybe get some young guys.
Okay.
From a shooting perspective, and as far as I'm concerned, they need to fill themselves up with more 3-and-D players.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we have your take on how you think the Clippers still need to be separated, but nonetheless, it's not Blake Griffin that's the issue. It might be Chris Paul that will try to find a new home. Fair enough. Okay, so then you brought up the Spurs, so let's talk about the Spurs series. We have the luxury. I'm going to get your pick, But we have the luxury of having Game 1 have passed, and we know what happened in Game 1. It was a complete shit show for the San Antonio Spurs. The Houston Rockets really beat them down.
What?
That's an understatement, but just blew them out of the water. They didn't see what was coming.
Yeah.
Did you expect that?
I don't think anyone expected a blowout of that sort, especially at home. San Antonio is one of those teams where I think they had the 1 year where they went 40-1 at home or something like that. It's ridiculous. They're
completely
insane
ridiculous.
But I did pick the Rockets
Houston Rockets.
to be able to
You
win
did.
the series. Yeah, mostly because look. First of all, I know we're going to talk about MVP candidates and all of that later.
Yep, we will.
But the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, Harden has ran the best offense this entire year. It has been
No question.
It's been absolutely
It's ranked
incredible.
1.
Yeah. I mean, from
No, Golden State's ranked exactly.
1,
Yeah,
but,
you're right.
But with less talent, he has gone ahead and not only made players around him better, but he's the way he sets up his entire team. San Antonio, they have found themselves vulnerable at the front. It's just become a situation where Clint Capella is running.
But is that weird to you? Is that weird to you? Like, think about it. It's like you have Pau Gasol, who I get is not in his prime, but you have LaMarcus Aldridge, who definitely is in his prime. But there's a different,
He looks about 30 pounds out of shape at the moment.
It's just weird to me that those guys aren't being the front two big guys aren't being able to stop Clint Capella and Nene.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I mean, even LaMarcus Aldridge in his Portland days, where he's putting up gaudy numbers, he was being hidden by the fact that they always had a good defensive center on it. J.J. Hickson was actually doing very well for them when they were starting back then, and Batum is one of the most underrated players in the league.
Yeah,
he could guard any position, and they were able to hide LaMarcus Aldridge, as far as I'm concerned, against top big men.
Sure.
They brought him in hoping to be able to convert that, but the fact of the matter is,
he hasn't panned out.
No, he hasn't. LaMarcus is just a bad defender. He's always been, and now you're left with a front court of David Lee, with LaMarcus Aldridge, and Pau Gasol, who are all old. Their only legitimate center is Dwayne Dedmon, who actually is a solid player. And that's what leaves. So basically what it means is that not only are these guys older, or in LaMarcus Aldridge's play, just slow laterally, which means Harden can just absolutely destroy you in the paint.
You know what's crazy to me is that the stat that it shows, so, with Mike D'Antoni coming in, obviously, and pushing James Harden from, number 2 to the 1 spot as point guard, the stat that's crazy to me is, so of the points that Houston scores in a game, on average, about 37% of them are generated from 3-point.
What?
And it's an absolutely insane team from
So
outside.
the number 1 team rank who scores points, so there's about 42.6 points per game on average for Houston is coming from the 3-point line.
Oh, yeah.
If you compare that to their year prior, it was about 31. So they've always been a they've always been a 3-point shooting team, but this is a whole new level.
Absolutely.
And they're blowing everyone else out of the water, which is funny because you know Saj, your mutual friend. He brought this up at the midway through the season or so. He said, "What if Houston just beats Golden State?" And he called it because he's like, they're just gaming the system. They're just constantly just getting to the 3-point, and it's just a race to who can jack up more threes.
I mean, they set the playoff record again, and that
Totally.
is 53 pointers out there, and you're gonna get that. It's just the way the team has been set up, and they have guys who are just incredible catch and shoot players between Ryan Anderson,
Eric Gordon,
Lou Williams, even Patrick Beverly. Like, these are all really dead.
Patrick Beverly's gotten really good.
Yeah, well, I love Pat Bev.
He's gotten really good now.
He's one of those guys you never.
But he's always he's a guy. We were talking about this today at work because I work with a Houston Rockets fan. He's a guy that you hate if you're the opponent, and you love if you're the Houston Rockets fan.
It's just the passion that he brings. You need.
He's gritty.
Yeah, it's just one of those. My friends and I talk about this all the time. Like, before we got PJ Tucker, which is, by the way, why I wanted him. It's just, you need a guy who's just a bit of an ass. On the field. Like,
it gives you that toughness.
It's like someone to get under the skin.
Totally.
Because that throws him off. I mean, we wouldn't have LeBron dancing around and all that, and people just being okay. PJ Tucker would be one who gets pissed off about something like that. And you need that. And Patrick Beverly brings that. And at the same time, he's an incredibly underrated 3-point shooter. And at the same time, his defense is incredible.
But that's always been incredible.
Yeah, it's always been incredible. But it's even more so that it's not just his steal numbers, or he rebounds about 5 rebounds a game for a guard as well. It's just he can get in there. And he's just,
totally.
Yeah, he everyone off.
Okay, so final take in terms of how long do you think this series goes, and who wins?
Yeah, I say Rockets win, but in 7. I think
in 7. Okay.
Oh, yeah, Spurs are coming back. This is not. This was
everyone overreacts after the first game. Like, this series is over. Blah blah blah. You can't ever count that out after the first game.
Look at Chicago. Even what was it? A couple of people putting down 2-0, worst first seed ever. Stephen A. Smith is a joke. That, but I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't just. react like that. Everyone thought Toronto was done after Game 3.
Let's not talk about, but okay, yeah, everyone thought about Toronto being done after Game 3, but let's not talk about the Chicago series, because if Rondo could have stayed healthy, that could have been a different series.
Absolutely. There's lots of things you could say, but you could just as well say, Isaiah Thomas wasn't mentally into it, or there's lots of...
Valid.
Yeah, there's lots of little factors out there, and the fact of the matter is it's a long series. San Antonio is going to come back big. Kawhi Leonard, who's the second or first best player in the world, depending on how you want to look at it.
Second.
Let's say second.
Yeah. What do you mean? Why are you settling for that? It's understood. It's second.
He's the best defender in the world, and he's become.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And he's become an absolutely elite offensive player.
He has become an elite offensive player. Yeah, agreed.
It's just it. Again, it doesn't really matter. And what I will say then, if you want to say second, let's just say the drop off is not some cliff that he's going off.
No, I agree with you. I think it's getting closer and closer every year.
Yep, Kawhi is just an absolute monster.
But there's Kawhi, who's basically in his 20s, and then there's LeBron, who's aging on the other side, right? So it's like this mountaintop. Kawhi's coming up, and he's on the way down. So that's essentially what's happening.
Yep, they'll
meet at some point. Yeah, and at some point the crown's gonna be passed. Sure. Okay. So then we talk about. Okay, so I got your take on 2 series so far. You think the Raptors, knock on wood here.
Yeah, right.
Knock on wood. Raptors win. Houston wins. Okay, we have 2 other great series.
Yeah.
We have the Wizards taking on the Celtics. A lot of bad blood between these guys during the regular season. They split the series 2-2.
Yep.
Okay, what's your take on that? Isaiah Thomas, what's your take on him? Let's hear that.
Oh man, I love Isaiah Thomas.
Do you? What do you love about Isaiah Thomas? Because I think he's also a defensive liability.
Yeah, he is. But the advantage of today's NBA, first of all, is there's not too much man-to-man defense that you have to deal with. It's more about team defense, help defense.
Oh, I think they're smothering him during Game 1. Like, Wizards were totally smothering him.
And they tried doing that all season, and guess what? He still was shooting at incredible efficiency.
He found his people.
Yeah. Even ever since his Sacramento days, he should have been an all-star since the year he scored 20 points a game in Sacramento. He was incredible. There's a pizza guy down there. That was my NBA League Pass team. It still is. I like watching Sacramento.
Nice.
Just like this year.
Still?
Yeah, it's still Sacramento's still.
That's a very strange team to actually like. Now that I think about that, because of all the turmoil that happens and. It's just such an uneasy team to root for. I'm surprised you root for them.
It's not even necessarily rooting for them. It's just something it's a train wreck, but it's just so much fun.
I feel like it's your reality TV.
Yeah, pretty much. But they have a lot of talent. Same thing with people talk about the Sixers, right? I've watched probably about 40 Sixers games this year. Apart from Embiid and all that, there's a lot of players that I like on that team that I wish Raptors would get. I really wanted Robert Covington here. It's just one of those things where he's become one of my, apart from being one of my favorite fantasy players, just fun as heck to watch in real life as well. But yeah, Isaiah Thomas, he's always had a situation where people have doubted him. Even when he was on Sacramento, he was their starter. But guess what happens? You get like Darren Collison in there, and they push him to the back. You had Tyreek Evans taking all the touches and everything away from him. When plain and simple, Isaiah Thomas is the better player. Yeah, it's been a situation where he's been doubted all the way through.
But now he's found a home.
Oh, absolutely, and I love that he's finally getting the credit that he deserves on there. I think he's hung around Boston fans a little too much. He's becoming a bit unlikable on that end sometimes. But you know what?
I think he's okay with that though.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? You need that sometimes. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Especially when you have so many doubters, man. Like in his case, like every step of the way he has doubters. Okay. So then we got the Celtics on one side. We have the Wizards. Okay, who do you think is actually winning? I'm picking the Wizards to win this in 7. You're taking?
I'm taking the Celtics in this in 6.
Okay, and so I got why. It sounds like you're a big Isaiah fan, but that's not only it. No. I assume it's because Al Horford pickup. I assume it's because
Avery Bradley.
Oh, Avery Bradley, right? Of course, defender, really good defender, fantastic defender. Jay Crowder is the to me, it's like he's like a Swiss Army guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I mean? Like he does a little bit of everything. But that being said, I still think at some point in the series, in my opinion, the Wizards backcourt, which Beal never played well last game, the backcourt is just going to be too good, and it's going to be much better than the backcourt of the Boston Celtics with Isaiah and Bradley. It's only because also in the fourth quarter, Isaiah to me is going to become a liability. It's not going to work. Because Isaiah right now, he's the number one. Like during the regular season, he's most points in the fourth quarter. It was a big deal. He should be an MVP candidate, this, that. That won't work in the playoffs, Haaris.
Yeah, totally understandable. What I think,
and not only that, but like you saw Robin Lopez, what he did to the Celtics. They exposed like the mid-range game, and he was just doing great. Okay, to me, Gortat is better than Robin Lopez.
Yeah. But the difference here being, I think the depth of the Celtics is going to beat out the...
That is the one problem.
Yeah, the Wizards bench.
That is the one problem.
Yeah, unless you're a huge Bojan Bogdanovic fan.
I'm a huge Brendan... No.
Brendan Jennings,
no
really?
Way. No way.
From that shirt that he had of the Raptors jersey on at one point.
No way.
But no, the Wizards bench is where I find a huge hole as far as they're concerned. What I do like about the Wizards, and I'm sure my brother is going to be taking this being a huge Wizards fan, is that they're fearless.
Your brother is a Wizards
fan?
fan?
Massive. You know how much I got trolled when they won 4-0? It was just...
Wait,
since the Gilbert Arenas
Stop. So your brother trolled you when Raptors lost to the Wizards?
He despises the Raptors.
What's wrong with him?
I'd love for you to tell him, no problem.
Yo, you should just be like, go move to DC. Don't live with us anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. DC Rising? No, it's
That's
DC falling
horrendous.
Right now.
What?
And of all the teams.
You know, it always bothers me, completely separate side note, it always bothers me when, like, I'm a big LeBron fan, but I'll never support LeBron if the Raptors are facing LeBron. Right, because at the end of the day, if there's a parade, the Raptors win a championship, there's going to be a parade in my city. I get to partake in that.
Yep.
That's a different feeling.
Absolutely.
Right? Whereas LeBron winning, yes, at the end of the day, last year, I was super happy for him. I was like, yeah, like this is him achieving his greatness, what you expect of him.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'm not going to no parade.
Exactly.
I ain't participating in no party. You know what I mean? So, from my perspective, it's like you got to root for the city that you're living in. Unless you grew up in a city, and I get it, but your brother has no ties to DC.
No, it's just been one of those...
That's just weird. He just picked them out of the hat. Like, here, I like John Wall, I'll take him.
It was more like he loved Gilbert Arenas and took him and just kind of went from there.
That's the worst!
I know. But it's, hey, you know what?
Oh
At least he sticks to his guns on that, so I'll give him that. It's fine.
Oh my God.
Hey,
listen, Haaris, brother, just between you and me, buddy, you need to pick a better team than the Wizards, and you definitely need to pick a better player than Gilbert Arenas. Probably the worst contract the Wizards have signed. Okay, so you're saying Boston Celtics win this in 7?
In
or
6.
In 6. Okay, fair enough. And I say Wizards win in 7. Okay, fair enough. Then we have the last series now, right? Which we have, of course, in the Western Conference. Yep. Okay. People are talking about the Golden State. Oh, you're dark horses, so I know where this is going. So people are talking about Golden State going 16-0 this postseason. Obviously, I don't see that ever happening. You have the number one defense team from opponents' points allowed, right? Which is Utah.
Yeah.
And they just went through 7 games. I don't think Rudy Gobert is at 100% health. Naturally, we know that because of the 13-second injury, like him getting injured. Basically, that was so unfortunate. Otherwise, I think that would have been a quick series.
Oh, yeah.
But now you have the 1 seed taking on the 5 seed, and there's, in most people's eyes, at least in the mainstream, there's a huge gap between the 1 seed and the 5 seed.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Fair enough. I think what people will find is a lot of it having to do with people just not watching the Utah Jazz. It's just
which is totally possible, by the way.
Exactly. It's one of those teams that you don't necessarily follow because they're not the most flashy out there. But in them, they've got some legit players, some of players I really admire. And when they've been fully healthy, they were on pace. If they took their pace from their health, they'd be a 60-win team.
Sure.
This is an incredible team that people just don't talk about. They have all the depth. I don't even like Joe Johnson, but that pickup for them has been incredible.
Well, clearly it's translated.
Absolutely.
To game winners.
Oh, yeah. Game winners. And, I mean, it's just one of those teams that have a lot of players that all, first of all, can create their own shot, which makes it quite interesting for them between George Hill, my boy Gordon Hayward, who, I love Gordon Hayward. It's just one of those.
Is he staying?
Is he what?
Is he staying?
Oh, in Utah?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. It's just one of those.
I say why not?
Yeah, why not?
He wants a ring. Someone's going to give him max too.
I understand.
He's going to be able to go to Boston. Imagine him on Boston.
There's lots of if and thens. I think people are too quick to judge. It's easy to make up all these potential scenarios where he could.
Yeah, but that's where the fun lies, Haaris.
Oh, absolutely. I understand that completely. Anyways, we'll talk
Okay.
But yeah, if he stays,
we'll worry about that in the postseason.
We'll worry about that in the postseason.
We'll do another one in the postseason.
Exactly. But as it stands, I mean, Gordon Hayward, legit star. People don't give him enough credit. This is a man who's in the Paul George echelon of players. He's amazing.
Wow.
There's a 20 points a game guy. And at the same time,
he's fantastic.
He runs his offense. He's tricky. People talk about hesitation dribbles. Watch some of Gordon Hayward's hesitation dribbles. It just absolutely tricks everyone that's on there. And there's a reason why he gets to the free throw line 7-8 times a game.
Okay, so what happens in the series?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of it from Utah's perspective has to do with health. So from Derek Favors' knee being shot,
which we know Derek Favors can't stay healthy.
Exactly. It's really unfortunate because
so unfortunate watching him. Rudy Gobert right now isn't healthy.
Yeah, and Rudy Gobert is where the difference is going to come as far as I'm concerned. So if Rudy Gobert is completely healthy,
but he's not.
It's true. But at the same time, he's been able to kind of fight through it, and he's got such a matchup advantage at that side over there.
Totally.
It's just one of those things where they can exploit. Let's be honest, I'd love for Utah to be able to pull the series off. I don't necessarily think they'd be able to do it, but for those calling for either a Golden State sweep or 4 or 5 games, whatever, I think they're going to be in for a surprise. I think it'll be a hard-fought 6-game series.
6 games?
I think it'll be a hard-fought 6-game series. Okay. Golden State will probably pull it out, barring Utah really executing in all ways, because the reality is you have great defense, which is true, but when you have just the talent level they have on Golden State's side, it's just not something that you can just walk past. And there's 2 MVPs on that team. You've got absolute guns from outside, and you've got another defensive player of the year.
Yeah, it's unfair. It's a cheat code. It's literally the cheat code. You know what I mean? Like in a video game, we were talking about video games earlier. It's a cheat code.
Yeah, someone turned the 3-point slider all the way up. And
totally.
It's just absolutely destruction. But where Utah can potentially do it is if they actually are able to get it to grind out at their pace. And by the way, at home, they have done that. Utah's been a really tough team to beat at home.
Excellent team to beat at home.
So that's where will probably be
their bread and butter is defense, though. But that being said, they haven't, and number one offense, we already know who that is. That's Golden. It's basically number one offense versus number one defense, right?
And while defense wins championships, when you have an offense to that level,
there's a different league of offense. When they say that, when they were making that saying up, they didn't know Golden State was going to end up being what Golden State is.
Exactly. And
4 All-Stars.
Talking about jumpers don't win championships.
Exactly.
No.
The game has evolved. Okay.
It's completely evolved.
Okay, so you're picking obviously
Warriors in 6.
Okay, so now we got Houston, we got Golden State on one end. We got the Raptors, and we got sorry, I am a Raptors fan, but it's like crazy. Raptors/Cavs versus the Celtics on the other end. Yeah. Who goes to the conference quickly, and then who goes to the finals? Just your picks.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, whoever wins this Cavs-Raptors series is the team that's going to the finals.
Okay.
So hey, you know what? Let's
go Raptors.
Let's go with Raptors right all the way through.
Okay, and what happens on the other end? Because now you have 2 elite offenses, but the difference is Golden State is actually a top 10 defense team too.
Oh yeah, and I think that series, different from the years previous where one Harden game winner stopped him from a sweep. I think it's different. This is a Houston team that's pretty much been built almost to emulate the Golden State Warriors.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
But they have the capability to be able to, as far as I'm concerned, even outgun a team like Golden State, which is really tough to say because
I know.
Golden State.
That was kind of my argument when I spoke about this earlier with another guest, was the fact that you have great 3-point shooters, but you look at the other side of Golden State, they've got the best 3-point shooters.
Absolutely, but then they can't play all 48 minutes either. So
it's valid.
Exactly, where you have situations where, first of all,
but think about it. Think about the first unit. Think about the first unit.
Oh, absolutely. It's not as much of a mismatch completely as you'd think. Ariza's an underrated defender. He's one of those guys you can.
He's gonna be on Durant. He's gonna be on Durant.
Totally. That Harden Curry thing, they're all just gonna not defend each other. It'll just
it's gonna be like an all-star game.
Yeah, pretty much. So I see Patrick Beverley on Clay. That's actually what I think they'll end up doing, because
not Steph.
No, not Steph. At least not initially. I think what they're gonna start off with Patrick Beverley on Steph, but I just think the way it's going to kind of pan out in the second unit's all coming up, I'm seeing Patrick Beverley spending more time on Clay, just kind of getting under the skin. Because as far as I'm concerned, Clay's the X factor. And all these things, you have all these great gunners, all that.
Are you worried at all that James Harden is averaging whatever season high turnovers? That's going to play a role?
You know what? Yes, he is, but at the same time, they're also garnering
record high. Actually, I think.
Yeah, it is a record high, but they're also garnering that many more possessions per game, right?
Totally.
Where it just kind of balances out on that perspective. I mean, when you have that kind of usage rate, and at the same time, he's threading the needle with a lot of these passes, it's going to happen. But there's no doubting he's an offensive plus on that end, and you're not. The turnovers. It's not like Steph doesn't average turnovers either, nor does Durant. So.
Fair enough. So who wins that? We're taking you on record.
Yeah, we're taking me on record. You know what?
Call it now.
So since I had pretty much said it earlier.
Raptors Houston.
Raptors Houston final. You know what?
Raptors win?
I'm going to say Houston in 7. And
wait. Houston in 7
Houston
against
in 7
Golden
in the
State.
series. Yeah.
Okay, and then?
And then what? We're living in La La Land fully, huh?
Fully La La Land.
Fully La La Land.
This is Haaris' world of wonder. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I'll wake up from my dream one day, but you know what?
And we're going to go to a parade, aren't we, Haaris?
We're going to go to a parade.
Yeah, okay. This is fantastic. Okay, the Raptors win. That's going to be the name of this episode. Raptors win the playoffs.
Let's
NBA
let's air this after game 2 where hopefully we can
hopefully we steal one. That would be great. Okay, fair enough. So now we got your whole playoff picture. Okay. Let's get a quick idea of who your MVP candidate is. So we know, obviously, I'm not a big fan of this, but Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double, which is amazing on his part.
Yep.
So he's number 1, in my opinion, in terms of the candidate that everyone's talking about being MVP.
Fair enough.
Okay. Then you have James Harden, number 2. Okay. Then you have LeBron James and you have Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the 4 that I'd say. Notables Isaiah Thomas, but I don't even think he's going to be on the ballot.
No.
Okay. So who do you take between 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of who the most valuable player is?
Okay. So here's the
not the best player because we know who that is.
Yeah. If they didn't have voters fatigue, LeBron would have won it a number of times.
Every year. Yeah.
Absolutely. This year, so I'm a big fan, first of all, of stories. Second of all, I'm a big fan of justice. So to me,
so you're going to Russell Westbrook?
No. I'm going with James Harden.
Wait, justice. Kevin Durant leaves. That's justice.
No.
He averages a storyline. He breaks a record that was held 1962.
So we'll talk about it from a different perspective. James Harden had a team 2 years ago that was absolutely injury riddled. He was left as the only guy running that offense. Dwight Howard was injured and he was out of it. Their shooters were not knocking down at nearly the clip they are now, but he led that team to a 2nd seed in an absolutely incredible season. Okay. And he was the players' vote MVP that year, even though Curry won.
Yes.
And in my opinion, even though I'm a huge Steph Curry fan, and last year was absolutely unanimous, but the year before that was James Harden's MVP.
Okay.
And this year, he's taken that up to another notch on that level. Not only has, like I said, we talked about him running the best offense in the league, but at the same time, people talk about Russell Westbrook's triple-double. Russell Westbrook also had a 41.4 usage rate to be able to get that, meaning, the possessions are either ending with him going to the free throw line, turnover, or assisting.
Yeah.
James Harden had a 34 usage rate, which is still obviously incredibly high, but if he was to have Westbrook's usage, he'd be getting that triple-double as well. So it's not... Yes, it's incredible, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you have to
Can I ask you a question? Who cares about the triple-double?
Let's just say that's just a made-up stat. It's great. You know what? It sounds good.
It totally sounds good, but who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
It should matter of who wins.
The W, exactly. The W is what matters, but...
Yeah, I have James Harden winning too, but that, to me, is all about the W.
Yeah, it's about the W. A combination. So it's not... If it's just purely W, then you'd look at the best player from the best team with the best record. I don't necessarily agree just with that.
Kawhi.
Exactly. Would be, I guess now, you want to give Durant or Curry, but Durant got injured.
No, but you can't... They exclude themselves once they get 4 All-Stars.
Well, they said
then
that
you have
LeBron went
Kawhi
to Miami, right? But he still kept getting it.
That's true.
Yeah, not that I'm necessarily getting him out there because, well, plain and simple, their records haven't gone down. Some of them have been injured and still winning the same. If Harden was to go down, people talk about if Westbrook went down. I actually have a different perspective. I think Westbrook freezes his teammates out. People talk about lack of talent on that OKC team. I think you're highly underrating Victor Oladipo, first of all, who I'm a big fan of Victor Oladipo.
Do you think it's bad for his development? Playing next to Westbrook? I think it's bad for his development.
Well, the thing is, he's a developed player. He's from his Orlando days. He was still 65.
Yeah, but he's still young, man.
Oh yeah, he's a young guy. But you've pretty much turned him into a spot-up shooter, which he's not.
But he's not.
Yeah, he's a legit ball handler.
But that's what I'm saying for his development.
Yeah, no doubt. There's more that can be done on that perspective. I think what puts Harden over the edge for me is how much better he makes his teammates, and at the same time, being able to get his own shot at will, and just. I feel that an opposition is more fearful of James Harden than they are of Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is one of those where you
playmaking ability, because they both have scoring potential.
Oh, yeah,
they both score
exactly
at roughly not exactly the same percentage, but roughly the same field goal percentage.
Exactly.
So it's the playmaking ability.
And I think Harden can hurt you in more ways. What Westbrook is not the same kind of 3-point shooter Harden is. He's not the not the same kind of
you're right.
drive. He doesn't have the kind of tricks that Harden does. Yeah. Like people get mad at him.
What was the stat? I can't remember the exact number, but it was an absurd number. It was like 230 more shots in the regular season Westbrook took compared to James Harden.
Exactly, he averaged like 25 field goal attempts a game.
It was completely ridiculous.
It's absurd.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. He was number 1 in most field goal attempts shot, and then the next guy was a huge drop off to the next guy.
Yeah. And I say this as a Westbrook fan and all, but I don't think you can give him an MVP this year. One, place equal play on team record. I can't remember the last time a 6 seed would have had an MVP. It's tough, and I know the regular season is all that people vote for, but you know what? Just looking at that series in Houston OKC, I think the difference is starkly clear on who was making their team better.
Yep.
Even though that doesn't count as far as the MVP is concerned, Westbrook freezing out his teammates, taking about 12 shots in the fourth quarter each time around and shooting at about like 20% on that. That in and of itself is a microcosm of what Westbrook does.
You're right. And then you look at the prediction that was made for James Harden's team once Dwight Howard left to win, like the win share percentage, and how much better he's done compared to what it was. It was like 37 something. Bleacher Report put this out. 37 and whatever the other side is. That was supposed to be his record. He ended up being a 50-plus win team. Which is massive jump. And then where Westbrook was supposed to be, he's basically 2-3 games above where he was supposed to be. Right? So it's like, okay, so he's exceeded tremendously above expectations, James Harden has. And then you have Westbrook, who really, to be quite honest, has achieved what he was kind of supposed to, but statistically has achieved above and beyond what he was supposed to. Individually. Right, so I mean, are you really awarding winning? Or are you awarding individual stats? That's what this MVP is gonna show us what the voter thinks about when he actually votes. Because if it's winning, we know who should win, and if it's individual stats and like mainstream headlines, we know who should win. Yeah,
it's all gonna be about what the media thinks and what the story that gets sold. Because in the end, even though you say, for instance, Kawhi is an MVP candidate, no one's talking about that because people haven't created a story behind that. But the reality is he's probably had a better season than Westbrook from an efficiency perspective. All that's there, but he's not being talked about. Harden, not only has he done better, but he's also getting all the headlines for doing that. And the Houston OKC series, as far as I'm concerned, put that to rest as well.
Cool, man. Well, this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad you came onto the podcast. Clearly, dude, you obviously know your basketball. You obviously know your cricket too, which we can do a separate episode down the road. But man, I'm looking forward to this NBA playoffs. I think the first round to me was, the Chicago-Boston series was a good series. Majority, like the Golden State series, was a pretty waste of time in my opinion. Memphis-San Antonio, Mike Conley. Shout out to Mike Conley. Yeah, man. Amazing player. Yeah. So, well, let's see how this NBA playoffs turns out, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. Hey, guys, I'm sure you guys enjoyed listening to Haaris. Haaris is a longtime NBA fan, and we loved having him on the podcast. It's always fun going back and forth with him. He has lousy taste in favorite athletes, but nonetheless, he has a lot of knowledge in the sport. So hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to continue covering the NBA playoffs in our next week's episode, where Atif and I will be talking about the matchups that have happened so far, similar to this episode, but we're going to be talking about the offseason as well. All right, guys. Peace.